All right, we are live, and I'm excited for today's guest. He was on last week, and he's back again. Our conversation was just so interesting and so important that I just had to have him on again. So on today's interview, I speak to an author, a speaker, an educator, and self-proclaimed nature nerd sharing ways to improve one mental health. He's a suicide attempt survivor. He lives with mental illness, and he's made it his purpose to share his story to help empower others who are amid struggle with mental health issues. His book, One Drop of Water, details his journey living with multiple mental illnesses throughout his lifetime and his suicide attempt. It's now available on Amazon. Welcome back to the Winner Circle, Jason Tyler McLean.
Thanks, Derek. It's great to be back, man. Looking forward
Uh,
to the extension of our first chat. That we definitely got into it, and we had some really good conversation, and there was some some very deep rooted subjects there, and looking forward to part two and where we go and what we can talk about.
Yeah, so for people that haven't listened to our first conversation, episode 159, I suggest you go back, give it a listen. But if you're just gonna tune in here, that's great as well. And for those people, or even for the people, repeat listeners, Jason, how would you answer the question, who are you?
Oh, I am a uh, a powerful and peaceful man that absolutely uh, loves and thrives in nature. I'm a biology geek. I'm someone that's big into empowering others and especially through storytelling and story sharing. I'm a pretty big optimist as far as when I look at situations and scenarios in life and try to project those perceptions on others to increase the flux of positivity around me. And I'm a leader, and I lead by example. And I am raw, authentic, and genuine. I don't bullshit or candy coat anything. I'm straight up, and I am who I am, and that's me.
Hmm. These conversations are called Welcome to the Winner Circle.
Yeah.
And to me, being a winner means embracing the process over the destination. So often people are destination focused. When I get this job, when I get this career, relationship, house, car,
Mhm.
etc., I'll be happy. And then they get there, and then it's maybe there's like a momentary dopamine spike, and then it's oh, now what? To me, being a winner is embracing the now, the process, and embodying your highest self in the present. What
100%.
does going for your win? What does being a winner mean to you, Jason? And what does your win look like for you in your life today?
Well, I appreciate a good two-part question. You may have to remind me of the second one after, but I agree with you 100%. For me, um, most of my life I spent always chasing that long view of accomplishment and yeah, sort of missing the migration through what it takes to get there. And when I started to do the work on myself and really tackle the dark the darkest corners of my mind and pull everything out and organize it and look at it and reconfigure it and really try to understand it. Um, you're a trained fighter, so you'll get this reference, but it comes down to, first of all, so many guys that want to learn, or women or whoever want to learn how to fight, they're so focused on the offense and getting that, the good hits and all that. And what you find out after you go to a gym and you start training is that none of that works until you start to learn technique. And so when you start to understand the fundamentals of something, you can become better at it. So through repetition, um, you start to say you're going to learn how to do a jab. So you start just slowly learning, and you get that technique, right? And as you build that technique, what ends up happening is you start to build speed, right? And the better we get at these things, the faster we get at it. And then that speed generates power, right? So that we get to this place where you master the technique and the fundamentals that allows us now to implement that application with action at a fast speed, and then with that speed comes the deliverance of power. And so that's kind of what I adapted as the way to start winning at everything I did. I started creating these battle plans, and I started what I had to do is really understand the flatline truth of anything about my feelings, thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and really look at them and then rewire my brain to understand that I had to learn how to, again, throw that jab just really slow, figure it out. And then this created what I call, like, mental fitness and mental self-defense, right? And so I, these basic fundamentals and principles I just applied to every aspect of my learning and my growth. And what ended up happening was, like you said, so many people, we focus on getting that job or all these things that are really distracting us from all the things that we need to accomplish along the way. I really dove into those things along the way that build that, right? I was very process oriented, and I found that, trusting in the process that I developed for myself in my self development, that's where the true growth was. And so that's where the winning started to happen for me. Um, and the second part of your question, I believe, was like, where am I at now in my life with the win?
Yeah,
Correct?
what does your win look like for you
Yeah.
in your life today, and
So,
what does
like, for me,
that look
my
like?
win now is I am the most powerful and peaceful human being I've ever been. And those two, are sort of the opposite arcs of it, right? Like, you don't usually hear someone talking about being peaceful and powerful at the same time, but that symbiotic, or that balance between them, that equilibrium is what brings me all my strength. It's this combination of my weaknesses and strengths, in this beautiful ballet together. And that's my win, because I'm at this point now where I only act. I rarely react to anything anymore. And I'm things where I use this really peaceful approach to things, but I move it with power. Or I do the opposite. I can move this with power, but because I'm so peaceful, I don't really have to anymore. And so that's where the real win for me in my life is, because I was just so radically emotional about everything, and I always reacted, and that. And so for me now, I have this very calm but very peaceful approach to everything. And it's completely changed my life. It's a new perspective, new understandings, and that's my biggest win for sure, because I just feel so much more connected to myself, and that allows me to connect to anything else I want to at any time.
Mhm. So how do you feed the powerful part of yourself, and how do you feed the peaceful part of yourself?
Well, the powerful part, and I touched on this last time, comes from all my weaknesses. And when we can learn to immerse ourselves in those weaknesses and understand them and where they come from and what happened to cause them and all these different things in our lives, they become our power plants. They become our true pool of resource for strength, because the weaker you are, the stronger you really are. We just have this sort of backwards way of looking at it. We've been taught that since we were kids in school, and all the different systematic comparison, archetypes that are out there in the education system and in the work world, and all the different things. But what brings me peace is the power that I have to control everything, and in a peaceful way. So they kind of just work together, and it's like, but all of it comes from my power, comes from my weakness, and my strength comes from all my weaknesses. Because when we really truly learn to understand what those things are, they become powerful. And so that creates a sense of peace, because our we go through a lot of our lives, especially I did, beating myself up and saying horrible things to myself in my head about all the things I didn't like about myself, or I'm going to screw this up, or I always ruin everything, or I always mess this up, and I always hurt people. And so, we become those thoughts. Those thoughts become our feelings, emotions, and those become our behaviors and our routines, and so on and so on. Eventually become our personality and our identity. And that's depressing, right? And so, um, when we are able to balance all that stuff, that's when you get this very calm sense of power. And with that calm sense of power comes the peace. It's just like nothing bugs me like it used to. I don't get agitated and angry all the time like I used to, and want to fight, the world and drink myself to every, bottom of bottle, and blackout, and all these different stupid things. And it's just this beautiful symbiotic relationship between power and peace.
So, Jason, what have been your biggest wins and accomplishments that you are most proud of, that you like to celebrate?
Um, you know what? Every day I wake up, I celebrate that I'm alive, and that I believe that every day is a new life. I believe that it's a full, wipe clean, let's start over. It's a brand new life. And so that's a huge celebration for me. And that's how I start my day every day. And I don't wake up in bad moods, and I don't wake up tired. I don't wake up upset. I do this and I go through. It's a bit of a ritual, and the word mindset. So I set my mind every morning into this thing of what I'm going to give to the universe, and what I'm going to do for other people, and what I'm going to do for myself, and all these things. And so um, that you know that that's where what? Sorry, I forgot where I was going on that one.
Um, yeah, well, just like one of your biggest wins
Oh,
is
right. So
each
so I
day
start
is a
the
new
yeah.
day.
Yeah, right. So I start the day with this new day, sorry, approach, and that's my biggest win every day. But if I was to look at, some of, like, wins, like, more like an accolade or something like that, or whatever, but um through my work, through my book, through my speaking, through my social media and my reach and all that kind of stuff, I have now helped over 80 people that were in suicidal crisis, and got them, either talked them out of it, or got them to talk to someone, or got them to resources, or got them, got called a mobile crisis unit for them, or whatever it was. And I've been able to help those people. And I've been those people, and I understand the desperation of that mindset. And so that for sure is probably the biggest um, badge of honor, or the reward I've gotten from this. Um, Also, just understanding that by writing my book and speaking the way I do, and being so vulnerable and honest and open about things, that I've touched so many people all over the world. Like, thousands of people have messaged me, and it's really overwhelming in such an incredible way. And to know that, something that I put in my brain, and put it out there, and I was like, I'm going to do this, and this is what's going to happen, and it did, and then it went even bigger than I could have imagined. um that's probably the most personal big win for me. But also, that's everything that's come with it, with being able, helping and giving yourself and giving service to other people and doing all these things, also makes your life better, and your relationship with yourself and those that you love. And so, my family life has just been beautiful and gotten so much stronger. And the relationship with Jordan, my lover, and just where we've gone, and the things, just it's incredible. So, like, just everywhere in my life has gotten so much better, since I decided to devote my life to helping others. So that would be overall the big win, I guess, for myself on a personal level.
Okay, so let's get into your book now.
Sure.
So in 2019, you attempted suicide. You were unsuccessful,
Mhm.
and upon recognizing you're not dead, you're age 47.
Mhm.
You went about writing your book, and it took you over a year of writing and a couple months of editing.
Yeah.
From there, how did you go about getting it published? How did the book that you wrote and you put your blood and tears into, how did
Mhm.
that become like a physical product? How did you get that vision out for the public?
Yeah. So, you know what, I had met someone that published a book, and she had shared with me, that she wrote this book, and she was this hardcore lesbian that hated men and wrote a book about how much men have ruined women's lives and all this stuff. And so I was like, I'm not really interested in reading your book, but I was interested in how she went about getting published, because it was is a pretty interesting subject, and a little bit, maybe on the fringe side of things, and all that kind of stuff. And so she had actually shared with me that she went through, Amazon and Kindle, and self-published through them. And so I looked into that. I had reached out to a few companies to publish, and I just, there, it wasn't as appealing to me. So um, basically, I signed up with Amazon and Kindle, and they, the beautiful thing about dealing with Amazon is they manufacture and print the book, they ship the book, they do everything for me, and then and same with the ebook. Obviously, it's that. And so for me at that time, I didn't have any money to put money up front to publish a bunch of books, and in my head, I believed I was going to sell a lot of books, and so I just didn't have the financing to be able to do anything other than this way. So it didn't cost anything. I think I had to pay a little sign up fee or whatever, and then I get paid a royalty. We split the profits of the book. And so after I wrote it, basically you create the manuscript. You have to put it into American um, English. So I had like 35,000 new edits because, of the differences between spelling. Like they hyphenate everything. That's like, say, self love would be self hyphen love. So I had to redo the whole book basically to fit that format because of Amazon.com based, American based. And so after I did that, basically I submitted it. I had created the cover. I had a friend of mine shoot the Ryan Dunbar, an incredible photographer. I had him shoot the picture for the cover, and so I created how I wanted it to look through a book editing program that was free. And then yeah, I just put it all together. And then basically, like, I was sitting there with my girlfriend Jordan, and she had helped me edit it. And I was sitting there, and all I had to do is like hit click, and then it went live into the world and into publication. And sat there for about a minute, kind of freaking out, but kind of super excited at the same time, and then finally just hit it. And yeah, it was just this incredibly liberating but terrifying feeling at the same time. And then so it took about a day or two for it to start to go live. And I had put a bit of buzz out there on my social media about my book, and that I was, coming up. And so, and I had a pretty good, I know a lot of people through just being very social my entire life, in, being in Winnipeg. And so that was really beneficial for me. And so, like I think I said this last time, like they say, most authors, 90% of them will sell 50 books. And, I sold more than that within the first couple hours. And it just started to take off. And, Amazon provides all these different charts and kind of shows you where you're at. And for the first month, and then after a month, they just drop you and you figure it out for yourself. But, all of a sudden, like I said, my book shot up into like the top 5 new releases, and, was competing with like books that were written by celebrities and all this stuff. And it was incredible and wild. And with that, yeah, so I launched, like, there's an ebook version and then the paperback version. And so I continued promoting it through social media and stuff like that. And then I later had negotiated with Indigo to carry it in their stores. So we started doing that for a while, and I did a few book signings and a few events for them, and it was okay. My relationship with them has been a little bit like this. So, but I wanted to, there's people that are nostalgic and love going to a bookstore like I do, and don't want to buy from Amazon. So I wanted to provide, at least in Winnipeg, an opportunity for that. And yeah, and then so it just, it's almost been 3 years, and it still sells. I rarely push it anymore, but it's still selling copies in the States and Canada often. It's carried in, I think, 17 marketplaces now in 17 different countries, and it's sold in everywhere from Italy, Japan, Germany, the UK, Australia. um, Brazil, like it's crazy. So, and then I attempted to record the audiobook, but it was just too hard. Like it just, uh, I'm too fidgety and like trying to record this thing in this little sound booth. And, I just, it's an emotional book. It's really powerful. And there's parts in it that I would choke up reading, obviously talking about like, when I got into how I felt when I was really depressed or when I attempted to take my life and different things. And so I parked that, and I never released the audiobook. And so I'm actually going to be doing that shortly. My next book, The Monarch Butterfly Effect, I'll be launching that as paper book and ebook first, and then an audiobook about 3 months later. And I'll be simultaneously releasing One Drop of Water as an audiobook too, because again, this book, One Drop of Water, is my first book, and then The Monarch Butterfly Effect is an extension of a chapter from One Drop of Water. And so people might want to go back and see the tie-in from that book or whatever. So, but yeah, that's basically how it happened. And then, like I said, it just kind of caught fire, and it became Indigo's one of their top-selling mental health books. It became one of the, as a Canadian authors, one of the top-selling mental health books. So really cool stuff and all that. But I don't, in the beginning, I really cared about that, but now it's more like, I like to know that I like hearing from people that had helped them or changed them or over the success or the numbers sort of thing. Um, yeah, so it's been a wild ride, man. So I'm looking forward to, my next one coming out and really pushing heavy on advertising with this one. And I have a lot more financial freedom now to promote it and advertise it and do different things. So it's going to be a pretty exciting time.
So let's get into that promotion of your book. So initially it was word of mouth, basically. That's
Yeah,
how.
I mean, social media and stuff. And, like I will say that, in Winnipeg, it did really well. And I know people in other provinces. And so, it caught fire. And then Amazon, when it's in that, when your book's hot, it rotates it. And so people see it and all that kind of stuff. So, if people want to search for a book that say, you put the keywords in mental health or self-help. So my book would come up within the, because it was a top for the first month, and then after that it kind of fades and stuff like that. But I was able to sort of continue that momentum for quite a while, a couple of years. And yeah, so, but I just did all my advertising basically through Facebook ads and Instagram ads and paid ads and stuff like that. And now Amazon has a platform where you can actually advertise right on Amazon, so I'll be targeting that, so that way people looking for books and all that, my book, they type in certain keywords, my book will pop up on their Amazon search, which is pretty cool. And then through website promotion and different things that I've done. So, and then all that's opened the door for me to do a lot of different speaking and mental health mentorship and all these different things that I do. So very grateful for all of it.
hmm So how did your speaking career begin, and what does that look like, Jason?
Well, actually, I've always been pretty good in front of a crowd speaking. I don't have any fear of that. And I was involved in a program in 2000, probably 13 or 2012. And so I did some speaking on anti-gang stuff and some FASD stuff, like fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, and sort of the tie-in and relation between that and youth gangs. And so I did that for a little while, and I really liked that. And so when I wrote this book, I really wanted to get in front of people, especially kids, at schools and different things, and promote positive stuff about mental health, but at the same time be real with them, and that there are really dire negative consequences if we don't deal with depression or anxiety or PTSD or whatever these different things, or eating disorders, or all the different things that affect so many, human beings out there. And then I started getting, so I was speaking at schools, and then I started getting brought into, workplaces to talk, do workshops on mental health with the staff. And then different, organizations would bring me in to be a keynote, and then just kind of started snowballing from there. And so, Yeah, it's been really cool, and then of course, like, COVID kind of played a bit of a game killer on that for me, obviously, because there's so many stupid in and out of lockdowns and, all the different, mandates or, made up rules or all these, things that definitely interfered with, the capabilities of being able to go and speak places. But it also opened up a lot of this kind of stuff, right? A lot of virtual talks and all that. So in the end, it's, everything's a good experience. And I know I was able to positively influence and change people's either perception or of mental health, or understand it for someone else, or in the workplace or whatever.
Mhm. You mentioned fear. What has your relationship with fear look like throughout your journey,
Well,
including
my
the
my
release of your book, including the
yeah, you
release
know
of your book?
what? Fear kind of was dictated how I lived my life for many, many years. And, I was terrified to do anything really. I just didn't believe in myself or believe in anything bigger than myself. Very insecure inside, like a little boy. And that's who I kind of reference myself in my book, One Drop of Water, as I was just a scared little boy. Most of my adult life trapped in this big, suit of armor. And so when I went through my process of work on myself, I confronted all my fears and exposed them all, and I like to say I fought them and beat them. And so, like, fear and pain to me now are my friends. I just they don't frighten me at all. Like, and I don't really invite, fear and pain into my life by any means, but I look at all the things I was scared of before, and none of them bother me anymore whatsoever, because I've exposed that really all of it, a lot of it was just manufactured things I created for myself that weren't even true. And so that's what most fear is, right? We have like our true, primordial fears. Like, obviously there's a grizzly bear in front of us on a path. We're going to be terrified of that because that animal, we know instinctively, can hurt us or kill us. But again, how many people won't go for a hike because of the imaginary bear, right? Because they're scared of something or all these things. So, I forced myself to face all my fears. And, a lot of that was pretty scary in the beginning, as it should be. And after time, like, I don't know, I kind of got over it. I started going for hikes in the forest at night by myself. I don't know, I started do all these crazy things, and, just whatever I was scared of. And, our imaginations are our best friend or our worst enemy, right? And if we can't control it and comprehend how to navigate that properly, well, then we're at the disposal of whatever starts to remunerate and spin in our minds. So, um, obviously, I have, I guess, some fears, not really, but, I don't have any anxieties anymore. I don't really feel depressed ever. I mean, I went through some really hard times when my dad died, and I was in a motorcycle accident last August where I should have died or been paralyzed. So that was a little scary, waiting to find out if I was gonna be paralyzed. But you know what, I walked away from that, and I just I believe that most fear doesn't truly exist anymore. It's just what we create, right? So either you can create the antidote for fear, which is don't fuel it, don't give fuel, don't give fire that fuel, right? And so, and the same thing with pain. Most of our pain comes from the fact that pain is a signal for us to change, and most people don't want to identify that. But every time we're hurting, it's because something in our life needs to change, and we ignore that signal all the time, and we make it worse for ourselves, and we hurt more, and we hurt more, and we hurt more. And so I was able to start to really understand that most of the pain I've ever felt in my life is because I've held myself hostage in it. um and I victimized myself, right? I like to stay in that state of, like, of pain and suffering because I can control it. So, and fear is the exact same thing. Like, fear and pain are like, they hold hands like this, they're best friends. So just learning that it's all imaginary, most of it. And it, if you can create it, you can destroy it.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
Your motorcycle accident, so that was in August 2023.
Yep, August
What happened?
28th.
What happened, and what did you learn from that?
Well, I was riding on the perimeter at about 100, 110 kilometers an hour. It was a beautiful early evening. I was on my way out to Birds Hill Park. I just passed Gun Road on the perimeter, heading towards Birds Hill, and you know what? I was riding along, and everything was great. It was clear, it was beautiful, it was hot, and I all of a sudden my front end jackknifed, and I tried to control it. I got these crazy wobbles. My front end eventually spun around, broke off. I went flying. I got catapulted into the air at 110 kilometers an hour. I hit the ground rolling. I rolled for 345 feet down the highway, my bike flipping behind me. Um, it eventually, what seemed like forever, I remember I was like spinning around and just getting pummeled, and the world was spinning all around me, but I could see my bike catching, flipping behind me, and it caught and veered off 60 feet into the field neighboring the highway. And I just kept rolling and spinning, and eventually I stopped. And I was there's this crazy millisecond that when I launched like a cannonball from the motorcycle in a jackknife, right? Because it just the back end flipped up and it's shot me out. I thought like a million things at once, and everything was just this crazy elasticity of time where it was like slow but fast and all these different things. And I remember thinking, about the law of physics and thinking about that concrete, and I knew I was going to be dead or at best quadriplegic. Um, so it was pretty scary for sure. That, but at the same time, I thought about all these things to do with like my family, and I thought about my dad who had died, and all these different things. And I don't know, like all these crazy things happened so fast, and I thought all these things, and I just remember hearing this voice saying, "You're not done yet." And then I just, boom, I hit the ground, and it sounded like just the percussion of my body. I remember the sounds of it just like as I was just like flipping and rolling. And then I lied there for a bit, and decided, I guess I better try to figure out if I can move my legs. And they moved, and I slowly sat up, and then I looked down at my arms, and they're shredded, and skin was ripped off, and my tattoos were ripped off, and blood everywhere, and my legs were ripped open. And I took my helmet off, and I looked at it, and it didn't even have a speck of dust on it, so I never hit my head. I just hit my body really bad. I guess my back was swollen out like Quasimodo, and my elbow was busted out about like it looked like a knee out here, and my wrist was the wrong way here. And yeah, so there's a nice couple that pulled up behind me, and some other trucks from the other side had stopped because they had watched all this in horror, and they all thought I was dead for sure. And I stood up, and everybody was just like, they couldn't believe it. And they're like, "Whoa, man, what are you doing?" And they thought I was in such bad shock that I just didn't realize it. And I told them I was going to go home and have dinner, and started trying to walk. And ambulance, I just heard sirens. And next thing I know, I was strapped to a hardboard and a neck braced up, and, hooked up to all these machines in an ambulance. And then my girlfriend and one of our boys, Damon, was there. And it was very emotional then. I guess it kind of sunk in then what had happened. My bike was in pieces all over the highway, and it was crazy. And they rushed me to the health science center. They had a trauma surgery team waiting for me. They got me in there, cut all my clothes off, and prepped me. And then they ran through all the tests, and then they ran through me again because they couldn't believe that my back wasn't broken, and all the different things. And turned out I just had some pretty bad trauma to my body, and some broken stuff, and internal bleeding from my heart into my stomach, and a bunch of really bad road rash. And they couldn't believe I was alive or not paralyzed. So it was a miracle for sure. But there's this incredible moment when I remember I stood up, and I was looking straight out, and everything was like silent, but I knew there was all this stuff going on all around me. And I just was like transfixed on the grasses blowing in the wind. And all of a sudden this monarch butterfly flew right into my line of sight. And I believe it was my dad. My dad saved me. My dad wrapped himself around me. And that was him coming to make sure I was okay. And that's how my book starts. The Monarch Butterfly Effect is about this part of it. And, the monarch butterfly is very symbolic in a lot of cultures of the afterlife and coming back to visit. And obviously, butterflies are transformation, rebirth, and all these different things, symbolically. But it was just this powerful moment, man, where I just couldn't believe it. And then all of a sudden, just, the whirlwind of what truly transpired happened. But so yeah, I got out of the hospital and I was all banged up and bandaged up, and they told me that basically a man my age should have been dead if it wasn't for all these big muscles I have that acted like padding, and the strength of my bones and all the things and the shape I was in. There's no way I would have survived that impact. They're telling me guys that at 40, 60 kilometers an hour don't walk away from what I went through. I literally bounced and rolled for 340 feet, man. That's like 3 football fields, right? Like it's just like it's insanity. And oh no, maybe that's 1 football field or two. I can't. But it was crazy. And so it took me a long time to recover from it. And there's a lot of challenges for sure, mentally, physically, emotionally, that came with that. I relived it every night for probably about 2 or 3 months when I was trying to fall asleep. Very traumatic, and I'd freak out. I'd sit right up and just like be hyperventilating because I just would be so back in there in my brain and thinking about all the things I could have missed out on or lost. So I've cheated death twice now in the last 5 years. So I'd like to stop there. I like my record so far. So but it definitely changed a lot of things, and it slowed the course of me writing my next book, um, for sure, because I just my dad had died, and that brought on a whole onslaught of depression and different things. Just obviously the my dad was my best friend and my mentor and all the everything. He was my everything, man. He was my Superman. And so losing him was incredibly difficult and hard. But going through that and then that motorcycle accident, not going back to, self harm or self destruction or alcohol or drugs or all the bad patterns I had before was testament to all the things that I implemented into my life to make my life better and to carry that powerful and peaceful relationship. And that's what got me through everything, so.
Hmm. So, what was your biggest takeaway from this second near-death experience?
You know what? I'll tell you what, if you want to ever feel more alive than ever, almost die because it changes your perspective on things. And this one, what ended up happening was we went back. Well, a guy that was there went and took pictures and showed me they had patched some asphalt on the highway that day, and they left a hump that was about 6 inches high and about 8 inches wide and about 5 inches deep. So it's like a speed bump in the middle of the lane, and I couldn't see it, and I hit that thing. I thought my front end just broke on my motorcycle, but I actually hit that thing because someone didn't do their job properly and finish what they should have done. And it almost killed me. And I've been riding motorcycles. That was like my fifth Harley. I think I've been riding more Harleys and motorcycles since I was in my 20s. Imagine someone that was on their first ride, trying that, and they would have hit that thing, man. Like it's horrific. Um, and but so cheating death, like back to that question, like the biggest thing, like it just makes you feel more alive. Like I just was so much more in love with things and so much more after I got through the funk of, my rehabilitation mentally, physically, and emotionally. It just it just amped me up to go bigger and better and everything at everything I do. I don't want to die, man. I want to live, and I want to live 1,000 fucking lives every day. And that's it, just supercharged it for me, you know what I mean?
So, do you still ride a motorcycle?
I do not. I am not allowed to. So I ended up buying a trailer that is, at a seasonal site by the lake, and it doesn't move, so it's nice and safe. And my wifey is very comfortable with that. My family is very happy with that. My sisters and mom are all happy with that. So no more motorcycles for me for a little while. So
Yes, smart idea. I like the
yeah,
trailer.
yeah.
Um, so you've mentioned like your father, your sisters. Jordan, all these loved ones, friends in your life. What were
Yep.
people's reaction when they learned of your suicide attempt, and how did they find out? Was it through your book?
A lot of them, yes. Yeah, like, I was great. I'm a great actor my whole life, and so I put on the show all the time that I was okay. And I delivered the Academy Award winning performance every time I was around people. And I mean, some people that knew me pretty good, like I said in our last chat, had some inklings for sure. I'd really withdrawn, and like thing I used to love going out and being with people, and I wasn't doing that. So there were some people that had some hints, but I took a few people aside just before the book came out, and I said, look, like family stuff. I'm like, this book's really going to be heavy, and I don't know how you're going to feel reading it, because I, I talk about things like that happened to me as a kid too. Like I went through some pretty harsh shit as a kid. And so, some, my sisters might not have knew some of that stuff. And so I had to prepare a few people for that for sure. And then a lot of people, I started like talking about it a bit more once the book came out on social media, and gaining these audiences of people, and and I did a little mini documentary on it actually, and it helped a lot of people for sure when I started being really honest about it. And but yeah, a lot of people didn't really know, and then I had people showing up where I was, like just coming and hugging me, and thankful that I was still here, and really heartwarming stuff for sure. And people would message me, and after they read the book, and just be like, dude, like, what the hell, man? Why didn't you tell me, or why didn't you talk to me? And so it was pretty overwhelming for sure. Like like I said before in our last chat, like you don't want to burden people, right? So it almost becomes easier to try just to hide it, and that. But it shocked a lot of people for sure, because I've always walked around like the big. I used to call myself Captain Cool Guy, so I was always like this cool dude walking around thinking he was the coolest guy on the planet. And so people were fooled by me. And yeah, so it came as a pretty big shock to a lot of people for sure.
So, how has talking about your story and sharing your personal struggles helped you and continue to help you today?
I think anytime you do something to help other people, without to yourself, it it improves your connection to who you really are. Um, I through all this, I was able to change some people's lives. I was able to enhance some people's lives. I've influenced a lot of people's change, perspective. I've helped dismantle some stigma in situations and in workplaces and stuff. So um, that keeps me inspired, right? Because it keeps reinforcing that I'm doing the right work and I'm doing the right thing. And I work with kids now, and I do some, this therapeutic stuff for kids, but at the same time, it's therapeutic for me. The more you give yourself to other people, the more you help yourself as well, without really intentionally doing it a lot of times. And so it's just, again, it all comes down to being powerful and peaceful, and being in this great spot. Um, so yeah, it's yeah.
That's a unique way to look at fear, and way to transcend fear is that's to be of service, and that maybe give people the push to like push past fear because so many people fear really stops them from going for the win. Like they have a dream of writing a book,
Yep.
but they're afraid of what people will think and the judgment it will
Yep.
have. But if you reframe that this like this will help people, maybe that will help surpass fear. Or someone has like a dream to like quit their job, to pursue like an entrepreneurial passion of theirs, or to become a yoga teacher, to go travel, um,
Yeah.
but they are like kind of drawn to like the safe path. Um, And like this is kind of a crossroad of should and must. And like the shoulds is what like they've been taught by like their parents, teachers, society,
Mhm.
culture. And like the must is like that calling in your
Yeah.
heart that like is pushing you to bring forth a gift of yours that is beyond you. And so many people they're stuck there. They're stuck at that crossroads of should and crossroads of must. What advice would you have for a fellow hero on the path that are feeling that call, that pull to like write that book,
Yeah.
and to publish it, or to change the career, or just a radical shift, something that would shake their world up, and they're unable to do it because of fear? What advice would you have for them?
The biggest killer of all dreams, goals, achievements in your life are these two things: the fear of what people will say and the fear of what people will think. And when you can get past those two things, I can promise you, you become fucking unbreakable. And when you stop giving a shit about a bunch of people that couldn't care less about you, what they might talk about or what they might say, you can do anything. We've been programmed our whole life, like you said, through all our different from schools and work and team and all this stuff. We're always comparing and we're always this, and it's garbage. It's complete garbage. And we've been suppressed from kids, that we're not supposed to be extraordinary. We're supposed to just be like everybody else. We all have that calling inside us. Everyone has it for something. I don't care what it is. It might be a book, it might be martial arts, it might be, like you said, an entrepreneur, it might be to be a mother, whatever it is. But it's like, if you don't go after it, your whole life you're going to sit around wondering. So why not just do it? And so, but the biggest thing like that will hold people back is like what you mentioned is people are so worried about what other people will think. I will be a failure. They're going to laugh at me. They're going to say this about me, or they're going to be like, he's an idiot. His book is going to suck. And you know what? When I wrote my book, there was times that kept plaguing my mind. People are going to they're not going to like it. It's not going to be a good book. They're going to make fun of me. They're going to think I'm a pussy. They're going to, all these things. And I would just say to myself, Jason McLean, you are going to change someone's life with this book, and just knock that shit out of my head. And again, it comes back to what I was talking about, that mental self-defense, where I just would set myself up. Those triggers would come, and then those insecure thoughts would come, and I'd just be like, what? And get them out of my head. And then I'd move forward. But you have to confront those fears. And why do people worry so much about what other people think? Because their dad didn't tell them they were, you know, strong enough, or their mom didn't tell them they were pretty enough, or whatever it was, or their brother was smarter than them, or whatever, all these different things. Or in school, they weren't the prettiest person, or all these things. Get over all that shit. Stop being a victim. We victimize ourselves, and people, when we victimize ourselves, we stay locked in this little prison cell. And the day you can get past that sort of stuff and just start to confront those fears and get over yourself, because all you're doing is you're just locking yourself away, and through fear. And who cares what all these people are going to think or say? If you truly believe that you're offering something or doing something that can benefit other people, you know what? I can tell you from my own experience that good things will happen. Yeah, there's going to be people that are going to make fun of you. Who gives a shit? Let them. What are they doing? They're miserable. They don't like their lives. They didn't make any good choices. They never went after anything they cared about or dreamt, and that's why they make fun of you, or that's why they're negative about things. Let them do that. Enjoy it. Have fun. You know what? People buy my book to give me a crappy review. Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I don't care. You know what? Because I care about all the people that read my book and it helped them, or it helped them understand a family member, or it changed something, or whatever it was, or it inspired them to do something else. I've had hundreds of people ask me about how to write a book since I wrote my book, and I've told them all I will help you. And 99% of them have all fallen off. One person has followed through with it out of probably about 300 people. True story. And because again, it's everybody wants to do something, but then it gets hard. right? And then once it gets hard, they give up because the voices in our head tell us, you know, doubt comes in, and doubt's best friend, insecurity and all that. And then, well, people are going to make fun of me. And what if I do this? And what if it doesn't work? And blah. We concentrate on all the what ifs and the things in the wrong way. Imagine if people that have remunerating thoughts that are like that cause anxiety or depression, imagine if they were able to rewire their brain to do it the opposite way. That all they remunerated on was positive things, because that's what I do. I constantly tell myself all the time, if I start to get a doubt, I rewind that and go forward with it. And I just make it the opposite. Whatever my brain starts to tell me that's negative, fuck that. I go positive forward, and I do it over and over and over until it is the only thing I think about. And that's what people need to do, because this life is so short. This life is so amazing if you want it to be. And there's miracles everywhere and all this incredible stuff. You only get to feel that if you break past that line of ordinary and go after the things, because you've done it, you understand it. When you go after those things that are not what everybody else would do, what happens? Well, you set an example, right? You become inspirational, you become influential, you become all these things because other people want to be a part of that. They want that in their life and they don't know how to do it. And then some guy like me comes along and is able to explain it in a way that they understand. And all of a sudden now they're like, I can do that too, right? And then if they can do it, what if now it creates a ripple effect, and then someone else they know can do it? Now you have all these people in motion doing things, but you have to overcome that first initial fear of what people will think or what people will say. And when you get past those barriers, you can do anything you want.
Uh-huh. And you also mentioned, like once you get past those barriers, like you need to know what your calling is. You mentioned like listen to your calling and go for it. But what if you don't know what your calling is or what that it is? How do you listen and how do you get there?
Well, I think everybody's got their own thing, right? And everybody's different. And maybe there necessarily isn't a specific one thing that's calling, but I can guarantee you that every single person alive today, at some point in their life, has been in contemplation that there is more out there than what they are doing. And not necessarily more like more bigger house or more cars or this or that. We all fixate on a better job and a better, external life and all that material stuff. But there's so much more. And people want to do, I believe most people in their core have something that makes them want to travel or whatever. And they're afraid to travel, or they make excuses and will never go in the ocean or different things, whatever it is. And so these are all, everything that ties us back is a derivative of fear. And so, again, it comes down to finding out what your fear is, understanding it, confronting it, and then facing it. And when you do that, again, you become unstoppable and unbreakable. There's so many people that, will never go in the ocean because they're scared of sharks, right? I've been in the ocean hundreds, maybe thousands of times. And like I've swam with sharks purposely, a scuba dive with sharks. I've seen a few sharks here and there, but I love sharks. I'm not afraid of them. But there's so many people that are afraid of the imaginary shark that will stop them from ever going to a place where there's an ocean. Why? To me, that's so stupid. You're depriving yourself of an incredible thing. And so it doesn't necessarily, for me, I believe it doesn't have to be a huge calling, but it's like there's little things. People stop themselves every day from doing something they want to do because of fear. Face that fear. Like, you got to live your life for you. And that's the biggest problem with fear, is that it doesn't allow most humans to do what they actually want to do, because they're too worried about what other people will think and what other people will say. So to answer your question about the calling, some people have that. Some people just know they want to be this and they're going to do this and they're going to go after it. And my whole life I always wanted to write a book, but I was terrified to do so. I used to write. I've written probably a dozen books in my life, but I've never published any of them because I was too scared, again, of what, people aren't going to like them. I've written books on poetry. I've written all kinds of stuff. And now I just, I don't care, because it's such a waste of time. Our life is precious and it is short, man. And I'm telling you, the biggest commodity you got is time. And if you're going to waste it with fear, you're going to lose that time. And then one day, what are you going to do? You're going to be dying in a bed, and then you're going to look at all the things you didn't do and you're going to be upset. And then you're going to look at what you have, that nice 2-car garage and whatever, and who cares? No one's going to care. So go after the things you want to do. Like I said, it doesn't have to be necessarily a huge calling, but I guarantee as soon as you start unlocking little things and doing those things that you would never do, something will come to you in a calling, because all of a sudden you're like, I can do this, I can do this. You know what? If I can do this, I've always wanted to do this, right? And then you'll do it.
Doors will open that you otherwise
Absolutely.
wouldn't have seen. A lot of this stuff you're talking about is kind of like self-help. And in our first conversation, you mentioned that you think most self-help gurus are frauds. Can you
Yep.
elaborate?
100%. You know, so when I got into this and I wanted to really learn, like I said, I immersed myself in, I was on YouTube watching all different people speak, and I was reading books, and I was on ebooks and audiobooks and documentaries and all this different thing. And so, I really started to look at a lot of stuff, and a lot of it started just to sort of be like, I felt like the same big name sort of self-help people were all regurgitating and recycling the same talk all the time. And I read a lot of books. Like I was reading like 6 or 8 books a day, like at a time. Like not, I couldn't read 6 books in a day, but I'd be reading 6 or 8 different books at a time every day. And I started to really find that a lot of them, like all it was is just like rinse and repeat, kind of recycled stuff that really gets people nowhere, right? It gives them a temporary fix. And so, I mean, I still learn from that, and I appreciate that they put it out there, because for me, when I read it, I was like, this is absolute dog shit. And what it does is like it inspires someone long enough to maybe make a change long enough for their next book to come out, or their next email sequence thing that you can pay for. And I look for things like, I think there's value in people that have true experience versus people that have a team of, therapists and psychiatrists and psychologists writing most of their paper for them. And again, I'm a little extreme on this, because I just, I look for stuff that is authentic and true. And again, these people have sold millions and millions of books, and it's not an envy or jealousy thing. I think, hey, good for you guys. But like for instance, like a guy like The Rock, right? Who does all these motivational, you know, talks and all these things, and tells everyone every time, I'm the hardest working guy in the room. Well, I'll tell you what, if you took The Rock off all the steroids and growth hormone he's on, he would not be the hardest worker in the room. And I'll tell you who the true hardest worker in the gym is. It's that person that's going there for the first time, that is, really overweight, terrified of going to a gym. And that is the hardest working person in the gym. Not The Rock, the guy that's on steroids and growth hormone and been doing it for 25 years, right? Who has a private chef cooking him all these beautiful meals and all this stuff. And again, like half his stories, the guy's a liar, right? He lies. He says he hasn't done steroids. He says he doesn't do this. And, again, the guy's just a fraud. And then a lot of I look at guys like, say, like Jay Shetty, who, again, billions of people love this guy. And then this is just my opinion of the guy. But this is a guy that grew up from a very wealthy family, that, his wildest escapade was a weekend of doing ecstasy, and then decided he wanted to go live with his uncle, who was a monk, and then, took all that and plagiarized it into his own manuscript. And, Jay Shetty used to do these incredible YouTube videos. I don't know if you are familiar with them. They're extraordinary. I loved him. I thought this guy was the coolest dude on the planet. And then he became everything he became the opposite of everything he talked about in those videos. Because to me, they're incredibly inspirational and incredibly motivating emotionally. And I was so drawn to this guy. I thought he was incredible. And then he turns into like this Oprah Winfrey style, kind of like, Pinteresty quotey guy. And just, I don't know, to me, it was sad, and it was so like ungenuine of who I thought this guy was. Now, don't get me wrong, people love his books, and they've helped a lot of people. But I think that a lot of the self-help industry is set up for temporary stuff, right? Mel Robbins, another very successful one. Every time I listen to her talk, she's always like, I went through the hardest thing I've ever gone through the last 3 months. Can never name what it is, never talks about what really happened, and somehow she's always telling people that you're almost there. You're almost there. Don't give up. You're almost there. Well, why aren't any of these people ever going to get there? Because if they actually got where they're supposed to be, they can't buy her next book or her next seminar and all these different things. So for me, it's like it's a very sales sort of strategy kind of thing. And I get it, it's a business and good for you guys. I'm not saying I would be upset if I sold 100 million copies of my book. I'd be very happy. However, I will not change how I write my books and how I will continue to write my books. And that is being real, raw, authentic, and honest, and using my own personal life experiences. And that's what people really relate to, in my opinion.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So throughout your journey, you've had many people that have influenced you, mentors, helpers, whether they be people you've met in real life or books you've read. Let's take a moment to acknowledge some of these people. Who were they, and what were your key takeaways you learned from them that you've applied into your being?
Well, as far as someone that I've read and watched and I really respect is Tony Robbins. This guy has been doing this for 40 years or 35 years and lives and breathes it and is brilliant and engaging and he's real. And yeah, he's made a business out of it. And he's done all the same things as some of these other ones. But this guy is the leader of the pack. This is the guy that everybody else tries to be like, and I absolutely love the guy. I think he's incredible. I love listening to him speak. I could listen to him speak for 2 minutes or 2 hours, and I'm engaged the whole time. So he is for sure like that's a guy I would love to meet. I would love to do. He's got like a black belt or multiple black belt in karate or whatever. I'd love to maybe throw a spin kick at him, see if he blocks it. But he's also like 6'8", so I don't know if I could be that flexible. But um, for sure him, awesome guy, loved his books, love his, I'll watch some of his seminars, I'll tune in, the guy's brilliant, love him to death. And that's one guy I would promote all day long for sure. um, Dr. Joe Dispenza, another guy I really appreciate, neuroplasticity and neurologist, really big on manifestation and transcendence and all these different things. And some of his stuff's a little far out there, but for sure, I really love his approach to neuroplasticity, like rewiring the brain and neuron activity and different things. How by creating new habits and new activities, we can replenish our brain cells and all these beautiful things. Um, Growing up, for sure, my dad was always my biggest influence. um, my dad had his challenges for sure. He was a biker and heavy drinker. Lots of anger and problems and chaotic relationships with women. And my dad got sober when I was 11 and changed his life. And at that time, he had met a woman and married her and been with her until he passed away. And she's still in my life. And so he's been like for sure my biggest mentor, my best friend. He's always told me the truth when I didn't want to hear it. He's always given me very constructive criticism when I didn't want it, but I needed it. And he's also been there to pick me up every time I would fall down if I let him know. But he never made it easy for me, and he never gave me much in life. I had to earn everything, including his respect. I did that. And so I continue to honor his legacy in this work that I'm doing, and I know he's looking down very proud and part of it as well with me. So for sure him. Um, but on like other levels, I can get inspired from a homeless person. If I'm like volunteering somewhere and giving food out, and sometimes I have a conversation with somebody that's at that absolute low. Um, I can find that more inspiring than any anyone out there, that just regurgitates a bunch of the same sort of inspirational quotes that everybody says. So I don't know. I get inspired by kids. I talk with kids all the time, and sometimes kids can say the most incredible things because they don't know any better. That's raw. It's honest. Um, my girlfriend Jordan inspires me big time. Um, she's been sober a long time. She stopped drinking. I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years ago, And when we met, I still drank a little bit, but as soon as I met her, it just was like, what's the point? She never asked me not to drink. She just was a really positive influence. And since then, years later, I haven't drank, and so she's been really inspiring and inspires me to be more understanding and a little more calm than I've been in my past. So she's great. Um, yeah, every person I meet, has an influence on me one way or another, right? So
Uh-huh. Well, thank you for sharing that. Another thing I want to talk about is the importance of discipline and how discipline creates momentum. And you talked about discipline as being a part of your transformation triangle. Can
yeah,
you kind of get into that
yeah, for
in more
sure.
detail?
Yeah. So another guy that I really enjoyed listening to and learning from was Jocko Willink, and ex Navy SEAL and speaker, and he's very black and white, very straightforward, blunt, honest, genuine. So that's a guy that's got real life experience, and maybe that's why I respect him so much. Um, but he's all about the discipline and all about mental toughness, strengthening the mind, and so I, from a lot of his books and listening to him, and even like David Goggins, like that guy's out of his mind, like totally out there, right? But that if you want to talk about discipline, like these guys are leaders of the pack for sure. Um, but for me, like I just didn't have any. I lacked discipline most of my life, and I was really good at starting things, but I would never finish, right? Because I didn't have the discipline to continue that through the tough times. So when I went through my self-actualization stages and into my self-development, I implemented what I call battle plans. And so every day I would write out a list of things that I had to accomplish by a certain time. And so I kind of made it like very military itinerary sort of thing. And it was like this, and this. And I started because I just had to challenge myself. And so I created all these new habits and new focuses. And, this would be learning time, this would be writing time, this would be workout time. And it's very regimented, and it worked incredible for me in my transformation. And then, so as I started to get more disciplined, this magical thing began to happen where I never had any respect for myself. And so I started to develop this new relationship of respect for myself. And so the more disciplined I got, the more involved I got with myself and my habits. I started to realize, you build this like you're doing things right, and you're learning things, and you're becoming better, and so you start to really like that feeling, and that creates respect. So things that would normally have taken me away from that, because I started to get this new level of respect for myself, just it was non-negotiable. And so that discipline really fueled that self-respect, and I started that started to develop together. And then as that self-respect kept growing, it created a new thing for me that I've never felt before, which was self-love, self-value. And that discipline again was is the controller of both of those. So I just imagined a triangle, and the discipline was on the top, respect, self-respect was on this corner, and then self-love, and they were all connected like a triangle. And so that triangle could flex depending on whatever situation you're going through in life. Sometimes you had to rely heavier on your self-love or your self-respect or your self-discipline. But what that transformation triangle, what composed the matter that held it all together was belief. And so because was so disciplined, it forced me to believe that all these things I was doing were working. And when I started to believe that, that's what made me, believe that in respecting myself and then and loving myself. And it just became this incredibly powerful model for transformation. And so I wrote about it in the Monarch Butterfly Effect chapter in One Drop of Water. And then so it is the one of the fundamentals that is in my upcoming book, The Monarch Butterfly Effect. Again, I really deep dive into, what I did in that to make it so successful for myself. So that because I've had a number of people, message me and say, like, I really like that idea. I implemented it. It's been really effective in developing new habits. And then I did the same thing happened to me where I started to really connect with myself and understand different things. And so you can adapt that to so many different areas in your life, whether it be, if you have a problem with addiction, or you're looking to get sober, or you're looking to just improve your overall life, their discipline is the driving force that will do that for you all day long.
Incredible. Thank you for that. I look forward to the new book. When does it come out?
I'm hoping September. My biggest challenge with this one is that I wanted to be a little bit. My first book was 19 chapters, and I'm trying to write this one a little bit shorter, probably around 10 or 12 chapters. But I keep wanting to add, and so I'm trying to edit it down and figure it all out. So I'm hoping I'll launch it within the next month, uh, and uh, and uh, and it'll be exciting. I've been working on this one. Like I said, it's taken a lot longer than I originally had planned, just because of some unfortunate circumstances with my father and passing away, and then my motorcycle accident. But we're very close to it being finished. I have the cover designed, all that stuff's done, and so it's just a matter of cleaning a few things up and adding a few things in, and then launching it out into the universe.
Amazing. Some people when they're writing a book, they encounter resistance, or not even a book, like any sort of like creative endeavor. Um, they experience resistance, and Stephen Pressfield, he describes resistance as that negative force in the world that keeps us from fulfilling our dreams.
Hmm.
What are your strategies at overcoming resistance? So that's that voice to tell you like, oh, like don't go exercise, or like
Yeah,
don't write today, or don't show up for yourself.
yeah.
And it shows up all the time. How do you overcome that resistance?
I just flip it. Like, I just, you know what, like, there have been times where I've given into it, obviously. But for the most part, I will, even if I just go write a paragraph, sometimes I just tell myself, like, I can sit there and I'm just like, it's just like blank. And I'm like, I have everything in here, but I just can't get it down. And I just say, man, just write one word. Just start with one word. It's the same thing. Start with one push up, start with one jumping jack, start with one good meal, whatever you want to change. And then I'll write that one word, and then that'll turn into one sentence, and then that sentence will turn into one paragraph, and then all of a sudden the flow starts going, and you go. But it's just like I said, like I was talking about earlier, where it's so easy to enumerate on negative stuff, right? And I've just trained my brain, like with mental self-defense, again, which is a big chapter in the Monarch Butterfly Effect, is that I've trained my brain to just, as soon as that trigger happens, or those those negative flows come in, just to counteract them, right? And deflect them, or I'll acknowledge and respect it, but I don't have to hold on to it, and then it's time for it to go. And usually, like movement is such a powerful thing when we get those obstructions. So I'll go for a walk in nature, I'll go for a run, or I'll do push-ups, or I'll start dancing like an idiot, or whatever it is, something just to change my total physiology, right? And that will have a profound effect on the brain as well. And then I'll get back down there and just be like, let's go. So I definitely uh, get challenged with it all the time, and I've had to train myself to overcome it. And that's how it works with any fear. That's how it works with anything, right? You just got to keep training yourself to overcome it. You've competed in fighting. It's a terrifying feeling, but you train yourself and you overcome it, right? So it's the same thing. We just have to learn that we got to do it with our everyday practices and all the things we want to accomplish, because we we've been subjected for so long to be talked out of going after all of our dreams and all of the true things we want to do, that our brain is programmed to just nope, nope, nope. That's the ego wants to keep you safe, and the ego wants not to change, and the ego doesn't want you to turn into this different thing, because that's different, and that's not safe. So
Yeah.
you just gotta go for it.
One thing that you mentioned that we haven't had a chance to really talk about is the nature. So you're a self-proclaimed nature nerd. What is the
Big
role
time.
of nature? What is the role of nature been on your journey?
Well, it's huge. It's everything. Like, my father instilled such a love of nature with me since I was a little boy. For all his faults, when he was out of control with drinking and all the things he was, we always were going on nature walks or camping and different things. And my dad was an incredibly intelligent man, and knew whatever he wanted to know about. He researched it and understood it. And so Um, he just taught me this love for everything from insects and arachnids all the way up to, trees and all the different things that make up a beautiful landscape and ecosystem. But when I was a kid, my dad sold encyclopedias for a little while. And so at my fingertips, like encyclopedias for most people wouldn't even know what they are nowadays. But encyclopedias were, books that were basically like, all the categories of the sciences and history and all the things in giant books. And like, there's 25 volumes per set, and they talked about geography and all the things, like all the big subjects, sort of like Google, but in paper. And I memorized like everything to do with, science, like especially biology and zoology and botany and all that stuff. And then I just was fascinated with animals, and I draw animals as a kid. And so just growing up, I always had this love of nature and wanted to know more and understand it and be a part of it. But when I in my migration to where I am now from 2019, I've spent so much time in the forest or in fields or by the river or beside this ocean or in mountain or whatever I can get to. And there's so many amazing things that happen when we go into nature. Most people will never truly understand it until they do it, but we have these primordial instinctive senses, right? Like, so if you get near, say, like a waterfall, which is incredibly powerful, there are the sound of it is captivating for your brain. The sight of a waterfall, because it's continually moving, but it looks like the same thing, is so stimulating. These are primordial stimulations for your brain. The smells of the trees, you like, there's so many different things and animal pheromones and all these incredible things in the air we pick up, and it just enriches our mood. And touching, the ground, like you should get your hands in mud, you should get your feet on the grass, all the different things. Like it just boosts serotonin and all the good things. But I just immersed myself, and it became a place where I would meditate. I would go and just sit in the winter in the cold, quiet forest, and I would sit there and I'd see owls, all of a sudden one just sitting in the tree beside me, or chickadees would be over here, and then I could hear blue jays over there, and just the songs, and it would just soothe me, and I would just forget everything and just be so present in that moment. And that's what nature does for me. It just I can go into swamp, I don't care. I go anywhere. I love catching frogs. I love climbing trees. I still do it all. I'll go in a jungle in Mexico or wherever I go. I don't care. I just love being in nature, and it's so powerfully overwhelming. There's just so many components of it that do good for you. Being by fresh water that's moving, there's things called ions, and so negative ions are released from mountains, from oceans, lakes, anywhere there's, rushing waterfalls, rapids, and these ions are absorbed into you and instantly are mood boosting. They make you feel, you tell me anytime you've been near an ocean or been on a mountain or where you haven't felt good, like you automatically feel better because of these things. And so nature to me has always had all the answers, and so I look at the animal kingdom, I look at the plant kingdoms, these different things for all the different answers for everything in my life now. And Mother Nature provides that. We just have to open our eyes and want to see it for what it truly is. Nature is playing out a beautiful, beautiful miracle that's painted for you in front of you, that's ever changing all the time. But some people, they'll never do it because they're afraid of bugs, or they're afraid of, they might see a bear or whatever. If people make excuses to avoid all the great things in life and sit on their phones instead. So for me, and again, it's time to discharge from, computers, phones, people, all that stuff. I take kids on hikes that I work with. I take people all the time. Part of my new therapeutic stuff I'll be doing for mental health, we'll be taking people on group walks out into the forest so that they can absorb all the positive energies and feel it and change it, right? So it's an intoxicating process being in nature for me. It's the best feeling in the world.
Amazing. I'm glad we are able to chat about nature and your passion for nature.
Yeah.
There's one last thing from our conversation, our first conversation, that I would like to discuss, and then I have
Yes.
a final few questions that I ask every guest.
Okay.
So the final question, like the final follow up from last episode, pertains to the shadow monster.
Mhm.
What have you learned about the shadow monster? What can you tell us about it?
Well, the shadow monster. to me is mental illness or it's depression or it's anxiety. And so it lives in our head, right? And so since I was a little boy, I've always had that shadow monster, and I feel like it's always been chasing me like my whole life, and that's because it's my fear and I've never faced it. So I've always run from it. And so, I feel like all human beings are fighting invisible monsters all the time. And so I just called mine the shadow monster, because it is dark and it's scary. And it's, as far as imagination goes, I mean, you can get a pretty good picture in your mind of what it would look like. Um, and so, when I was very depressed, and suicidal, I believed I was going to kill the shadow monster, and that's what I confronted at the time of when I attempted to take my life. Was I was looking the shadow monster in the eyes and like saying like, I finally got you, and that was how I was going to go out. And now I there's no escaping it. It's always going to be there. And that's the thing about mental illness, whether it's depression or it's bulimia or it's PTSD or whatever. Those things are always going to find their way back into your life if you allow them. Like what I went through with my dad dying or my motorcycle accident, I could have easily gone backwards, started drinking or getting violent or, you know, playing a victim or, giving up or self doubt or all the different things that I used to do. And like I said, I could feel that shadow monster a few times. It was there. He was waiting for me, just like, I'm going to get you still. And so now for me, it's like, it's, it propels me to keep going forward, and I'm not afraid of it anymore. I've already looked at it in its beady eyes, and it can't get me. I know it can't get me. But I know it's still terrorizing other people. There's hundreds and hundred millions of people. Like statistics show us that over 600 million people in the world are diagnosed with depression. And what's even scarier about that is that over 60% of human beings will never go get a proper diagnosis of depression or anxiety. So that's like a 40% of what truly is out there. And that's terrifying, right? And that's the shadow monster at work. And so everybody's running from one at some point in their life, whether it's fear of something or anxiety or whatever it is. We all go through some pretty harsh stuff in our lives, and we some bad challenges and adversity in different forms, and they can destroy us, and that. So shadow monster for me now is almost like a friend, like it's almost like a friend I wouldn't invite back into my life, but a friend that I have. I don't know if that makes sense, but I've just I understand what it is and its purpose, and I just don't let it in my life anymore.
Yeah, thank you for that, Jason. And if anyone is having problems with depression or suicidal thoughts, um, they can get help. And whether they're in Canada and the US, they can call or text 988. That's 24 hours a
Yep.
day, 7 days a week, suicide helpline.
Hmm.
And for help internationally, they can go on findahelpline.com to get information particular to their country.
Yep.
So I just want to throw that out there for
Thank
anyone
you.
that may need
Yeah.
that. Okay, the final three questions that I ask every guest.
Okay.
Through all the highs and lows that is it has been your journey, Jason. What has
Yeah.
been the greatest life lesson you've learned on your path that you feel called in this moment to share with me and anyone tuning in?
Hmm. Of all the highs and lows, what is the greatest call you said,
What
or
is no, what has been the greatest life lesson you've learned
whole
on
life?
your
Sorry.
journey?
For me, it's been um humility. And I had a huge out of control ego fueled by insecurity for most of my life, and this has really changed that. I put a lot of work, ego work in, um to rewire how my brain works, and how I register things and how I act. And so for me, for sure, I think the biggest life lesson has been, the humility, becoming humble. Um, and that also comes with helping others, right? You kind of, you can't be an arrogant dick when you're out there devoting your life to really sensitive topics and being honest and helping people. So that for sure, I think would be the biggest one. Yeah.
Humility.
Yeah.
Thank you. In 3 words, how would you describe the experience you were having on this earth?
3 words.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be a sentence, just 3 separate words that would describe the experience you're having on this earth.
Grateful, excited, and um, peaceful.
Grateful, excited, and peaceful.
Mhm.
It's a nice place.
It is. I worked hard to get here, man.
We've examined your past, we've examined your present. Let's time travel. Let's go into the future.
Yep.
We're gonna go into the future, and we're gonna be alongside an 85-year-old Jason Tyler McLean. Who is this 85-year-old man? Where are you? Who are you surrounded by? What is the legacy you've left in your 85 years? And what are the predominant feelings in your being?
Wow, that's a lot of questions. 85-year-old Jason Tyler McLean is in good shape mentally, physically, emotionally. Um, by my side would be my wifey Jordan. We'd hopefully be in a beautiful place like Mexico or Costa Rica, where we have bees and butterflies and kids and grandkids and surrounded by nature and all the things that we love and all the people we love. And my legacy would be that I could sit there and look out at the world and smile because I know I did my part in helping people live a better life, understand who they are, become what they've always wanted to be, and and know that I made this world a better place.
And the predominant feelings in your being?
Happiness, comfort, love, gratefulness, for sure.
Amazing.
Yeah, man.
So I just want you to sit with those feelings, maybe close your eyes, take a few breaths, and sit with that happiness, gratitude, comfort. And I'm going to bring us back. I'm going to bring us back to the present day. And that 85-year-old Jason, he sends current day Jason a message. What does he whisper in your ear?
Keep going, man. Keep going.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah,
this conversation number 2, where we got to explore more about your beautiful journey to
thank
now.
you.
Um, to close, we'll bring our fist in, digital
Yes,
fist
sir.
bump, always a choice to
Yeah,
step into our highest self, step into the winner's circle, step in to the now. Thank you so much. For those wanting to connect with you, Jason, they can find you online,
yep,
jasontylermclean.com, or on
yep,
Instagram at Jason Tyler McLean.
yep.
Any last words from you?
I just want to say thanks to you first and foremost for having me on. It's been great chatting with you. Great questions, great just awesome experience overall. I really enjoyed it. To anyone out there that is struggling, just keep fighting. Don't give up. Just please, just understand that you can do it. Like I said in the last one, if I was able to make these transformations, so can you. I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the strongest guy. I just found my way, and now I share it with people, and in hopes that I can inspire them to do the same and be provide a bit of a roadmap or a guide through the tough trails of life. And this world is beautiful if you choose to see it that way. And once you're able to do that, I tell you that everything changes. And God bless, and I wish everyone the best.
Day by day, step by step,
100%.
breath by breath.
That's
You
right.
got this. Keep going.
That's right.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you.